A girl clawed her way out of a wooden box buried in the Oregon wilderness. She'd been missing for 6 years. But here's the catch. When she vanished, she was 11 years old. When they found her, still 11, no aging, no explanation, just a lie etched into her bones, a name that belonged to a dead girl, and a lullaby she swears was composed by the man who kept her in a soundproof room for 2,000 days. This isn't a crime story. This is a riddle, and the answer might still be out there, waiting to finish what it started. In the fall of 2002, deep in Oregon's Willamette Forest, a park ranger stumbled onto something unnatural. Not an animal den, not a hunter's trap. A wooden box, crudely nailed together, barely 3 feet long, buried under 6 inches of damp soil. And inside, a girl, curled like a corpse, her skin waxy and pale, her lips cracked with thirst. But she was alive, barely. When paramedics pried her out, she didn't scream, didn't cry. She looked the sheriff dead in the eye and whispered, "He's still composing." 3 words. That's all she said. 3 words that led detectives down a trail of dead ends and dead girls. Because here's the thing, this survivor, she wasn't new to missing persons files. Her face matched a photo from 1996, a 6th grader named Emily Walsh, who pedaled her Schwinn bike home from school one afternoon and never made it. But that was 6 years earlier. 6 years, and yet the girl in the box hadn't aged a day. Not one. So let me ask you, how do you vanish for 2,000 nights and not grow older? How do you survive underground in a box with no food, no water, no light? And who the hell was he? The composer. Was this a kidnapper or something else? A ghost? A god? A man obsessed with perfecting a symphony only he could hear? This is the story the FBI redacted. The story the Walsh family buried. And tonight, you're digging it up. October 12th, 2002. A day that started with fog clinging to the pines of Oregon's Willamette Forest. A hiker named Joel Myers was halfway through his usual trail when his bootlace snapped. Cursing, he knelt to retie it. That's when he heard it, a sound that didn't belong. Not a bird, not the wind, a whimper. High-pitched, desperate, human. He followed it, leaves crunching under his boots, until he found a patch of dirt that looked wrong. Too smooth, too recent. No shovel marks, no tools, just earth shoved aside by bare hands. Joel dug, fingernails splitting, dirt wedged under his skin until his knuckles hit wood. A crate, rough, splintered, reeking of mildew. And inside, a girl, 17 maybe, her wrists lashed together with piano wire, thin enough to draw blood with every twitch. Her skin was gray-tinged, lips blistered, eyes wide like she'd forgotten what daylight looked like. Paramedics later said she weighed 82 pounds. But here's what they didn't say. When they checked her dental records, the truth turned their blood to ice. This girl wasn't some runaway. She was Emily Walsh, a name etched onto a gravestone 200 miles away. A girl who'd vanished in 1996 at age 11. 6 years gone. But the math didn't add up. 6 years, and yet her body hadn't aged. Not a single growth spurt. No puberty. No scars beyond the wire on her wrists. It's like time froze her the moment she climbed onto that pink bike of hers and pedaled toward a shadow. So let me ask you, where do you hide someone for 6 years without a trace? A basement? A bunker? A box? And why let them live, only to bury them alive in a forest crawling with hikers? Was it a mistake? Or was it part of the plan? The sterile glow of the hospital, the girl refused to answer to Emily. She insisted her name was Lily Carter, a name that meant nothing to the detectives until they ran it through the system. Lily Carter died in 1996. A car accident, head-on collision, a closed casket funeral. But here's the problem. The girl in the hospital bed knew things only Lily would know. The name of her childhood dog, the street where she'd learned to ride a bike, the scar on her father's left hand from a fishing accident. So who is she? Detectives pulled dental records. A perfect match, Emily Walsh, the girl who'd vanished in 1996. But Emily's family swore she was dead. They'd buried her. They'd grieved. Her mother showed police a lock of Emily's hair, kept in a locket for 6 years. Her father had the autopsy report, a Jane Doe found in a river, too decomposed to ID, but wearing Emily's bracelet. They'd accepted it was her. They'd moved on. But this girl, this Emily, hadn't moved an inch. She spoke in fragments, memories that didn't fit. She described a kind man who fed her soup and taught her algebra. A man who played piano for hours, Chopin, Mozart, Beethoven, while she sat cross-legged on a basement floor. A man who never raised his voice, never hurt her, but kept her locked behind a steel door. He was preparing me, she said. For what? She didn't know. But here's where her story unraveled. She claimed she'd been in that basement for 6 years. 6 years of lessons. 6 years of candlelight and sheet music. But when detectives asked about the passage of time, holidays, birthdays, news events, she went blank. He said calendars were distractions, she whispered. He said time was a lie. Then one day, the man stopped playing piano. He unshackled her ankles, blindfolded her, and led her upstairs. She felt grass under her feet, sunlight on her face, and then nothing. She woke up in the box, buried, alone. The detectives pushed harder. Why didn't she age? How did she survive 6 years in a basement without sunlight or fresh air? She had no answers. But when a nurse drew her blood, the lab found something off. Her cells, her DNA. It was all Emily Walsh. But her telomeres, the part of our DNA that shortens as we age, were frozen, like she'd been stuck at 11 years old biologically while the world moved on without her. The Walsh family refused to see her. They called her a thing, a trick. But when detectives played a recording of her voice, Emily's mother collapsed. "That's her," she sobbed. "That's my daughter's laugh." Then the girl dropped a bombshell. She said the man told her, "You're both now, Lily and Emily, 2 souls in one body." A harmony, he called it. He claimed he'd saved her from the car crash that killed Lily, that he'd stitched her back together with pieces of another girl. She didn't understand, neither did the doctors, but there was proof. Hidden under the girl's left arm was a scar, a jagged surgical line. When they scanned it, they found a metal plate screwed into her ribcage, a serial number etched into the steel, a code that traced back to a medical supply company in Germany, which had gone bankrupt in 1989. A company that never made pediatric plates. The man had left other clues. In the basement, the girl said there was a clock, a grandfather clock that never ticked. Its hands stuck at 3:07. The same time the hospital's power had flickered the night she vanished from her room. The same time stamped on the security footage the cops couldn't explain. A blur of motion, a shadow in a tuxedo, and then nothing. Was the man a doctor? A scientist? A mad composer blending flesh and time into his masterpiece? The girl didn't know. All she remembered was his final words before he buried her. The song needs silence to grow. Then, she looked at the detective and asked a question that still chills investigators to this day. Am I the silence or the song? And with that, she closed her eyes, refused to speak another word. They never got answers. The case went cold. The Walshes moved to another state. The girl, whoever she was, disappeared from records. But in 2019, a retired cop received a postcard. No message, just a handwritten musical staff with 4 notes, and a postmark from a town that hadn't existed since 1932. As for the man, some say he's still composing, still searching for the right notes, still waiting for the world to hear his symphony. But if you listen closely, maybe you already have. The girl called him the piano man. A virtuoso, she said. A man who played concertos the way others breathe. Effortless, automatic, alive. Chopin at dawn. Beethoven by candlelight. Schubert as she fell asleep. But when police raided music schools, conservatories, and concert halls, they found nothing. No missing pianists. No teachers with a record. No tuxedo-clad phantom in Oregon's underground scene. Then a break. In 1999, 3 years before the girl was found, a farmer named Hank Voss reported seeing a man in a black tuxedo digging a hole near the edge of the Willamette Forest. At midnight, in the rain, Hank thought it was a prank, a drunk in a Halloween costume. But when sketch artists recreated the man's face based on Hank's description, detectives froze. The sketch matched a man seen loitering near Emily Walsh's childhood home in 1996, the week she vanished. A neighbor had spotted him, tall, gaunt, with a shock of white hair and gloves too thick for summer. He'd stood under a street lamp, staring at Emily's bedroom window. When the neighbor shouted, he turned and walked into the dark. No footprints, no car, just gone. Now, police had a name, the piano man. But here's where logic collapsed. The tuxedo digger from 1999? Hank swore the man's face was young. Mid-30s. No wrinkles. No white hair. Just jet black strands slicked back with oil. But the man from 1996, the one outside Emily's house, had been described as old. Late 60s. Stooped. Liver spots on his hands. 2 different men? Or something worse? Detectives combed through Hank's story again. The tuxedo had a missing button, Hank said. The shovel the man used was rusted, with a serial number stamped near the handle. They traced it to a hardware store in Idaho that had burned down in 1972. The shovel shouldn't exist. Neither should the man. Then another lead. In the box where Emily was buried, forensic teams found strands of hair, white, aged, belonging to a man over 70. But when they tested the DNA, it matched no one. Not in criminal databases, not in ancestry records. It was empty, like the cells had been scrubbed clean. A genetic ghost. The piano man wasn't just a criminal. He was a riddle. Was he a time traveler? A vampire? A scientist who'd cracked immortality? The theories spiraled, but the cops stuck to facts. They found a pattern. Every time the piano man appeared, clocks stopped. At Emily's house in 1996, every clock in the neighborhood lost 6 minutes at 3:07 a.m. The night Hank saw him digging in 1999, the farmer's pocket watch froze for exactly 13 seconds. And when Emily was buried in 2002, the park ranger's GPS glitched, timestamp looping the same 10-second interval for an hour. Time bent around him, or he bent time itself. Then the lab results came back. The piano wire binding Emily's wrists wasn't just wire. It was a custom alloy, a blend of steel and a rare metal called hafnium used in nuclear reactors. The only place it could have been made? A classified facility in Russia that hadn't operated since 1985. The cops were chasing a shadow with a passport to nowhere. Pressure mounted. The FBI took over. Psychiatrists interviewed Emily, probing for lies. But she stuck to her story. The piano man was kind, soft-spoken. He never hurt her. He just composed. Composed what? They asked. She didn't know. Then a rookie detective noticed something. In Emily's hospital sketches, doodles she'd drawn of the basement, there was always a metronome, a vintage one with a brass pendulum. When they zoomed in, they saw tiny numbers etched into the weight, 3:07. The same time the clocks had stopped. The same time Emily would later vanish from her hospital room. They dug deeper. A music historian identified the metronome as a 19th century Austrian model, one owned by Ludwig van Beethoven. But Beethoven's metronome was in a German museum, had been for 100 years. Unless it wasn't. A curator was sent to check. The metronome was there, but the weight was missing, replaced with a fake. The theft had never been reported. The piano man wasn't just a kidnapper. He was a collector, a thief of time itself. Panic set in. Detectives worked 20-hour days. Some quit. Others began seeing things, a man in a tuxedo in their peripheral vision, a faint hum of piano keys when they tried to sleep. One cop swore he heard a metronome ticking in his basement. When he went to check, he found a single sheet of music on his workbench. For Emily, it read. The notes were unplayable. Too many keys. Too few octaves. Then, as quickly as it began, the trail died. The piano man evaporated. No more sightings. No more clues. Just a cold case file thicker than a Bible and twice as cursed. But in 2015, a retired detective named Rosa Gutierrez got a letter. No return address. Inside was a photograph of a grand piano in an empty concert hall. On the piano's lid, a metronome ticked. The pendulum froze at 3:07, and on the wall behind it, scrawled in what looked like blood, the next movement begins. Soon, Rosa took the photo to the lab. The blood was tested. It was hers. But here's the thing. Rosa had never been to that concert hall. Never bled there. Never even heard of it. The hall, they later learned, had been demolished in 1944. So who took the photo? Where? And when? The piano man's song never ended. It just paused. And somewhere out there, the metronome is still ticking. 3 months after the girl was found, she vanished again. Not from a roadside or a dark alley. From a locked hospital room. 4th floor. Window bolted. Door chained from the outside. A nurse checked on her at 2:55 a.m. 12 minutes later, she was gone. Security footage showed nothing but a flicker of lights at 3:07. A split-second blur, like the screen itself blinked. When the guards rushed in, they found her bed empty. Her drip still flowing, heart monitor still beeping, and on her pillow, a note written in elegant cursive. You'll never finish the sonata. Police tore the room apart. They found no fingerprints, no hidden exits, no trace of struggle, just the faint smell of candle wax and a single strand of white hair on the windowsill. When they tested it, the DNA came back, inconclusive. Not human, not animal, just blank. Detectives interrogated the staff. Had they seen anyone? Heard anything? One nurse recalled a sound, a low, droning hum, like a distant organ, seconds before the lights flickered. Another swore she felt a cold breeze, despite the sealed windows. But there was no evidence, no logic, just a dead end dressed up as a miracle. The case went cold. Years passed. The Walshes moved to Alaska. The lead detective retired, his notes filled with scribbles about time loops and ghost composers. Then in 2010, a piano tuner in New York made a discovery that reignited the nightmare. He'd been hired to restore a 19th-century grand piano in an old concert hall. As he lifted the lid, a brittle sheet of music fluttered out. At first glance, it looked ordinary, a handwritten sonata in D minor. But in the margins, someone had scribbled, Emily, Movement 3, and a set of coordinates. The coordinates led to a clearing in the Willamette Forest, the exact spot where the girl had been buried in 2002. Police excavated the site again. No body, no crate, just a hole in the ground, and at the bottom, a small metal box. Inside was a single ivory piano key, wrapped in a faded hair ribbon. Pink, with tiny strawberries embroidered along the edge. Emily's mother identified it immediately. She wore that ribbon the day she disappeared, she told police, her voice shaking. It was on her bike handlebars. I put it there myself. But here's where the story curdles. The piano key wasn't just a key. Etched into its side was a serial number. When investigators traced it, they learned it belonged to a Steinway piano, one that had been destroyed in a fire in 1921. A piano that, according to records, had never been repaired or salvaged. So how did its key end up in a forest in 2002? Wrapped in a ribbon from 1996? Buried under coordinates sent through a sheet of music in 2010? The cops had no answers. But the piano tuner did. A week after his discovery, he received a letter. No postmark, no stamp, just his name written in ink that shimmered like oil. Inside was a single sentence. You tuned the wrong instrument. The next day, the tuner's shop burned down. Firefighters found his tools melted into puddles of silver, and his body curled inside the charred remains of a grand piano. His hands, crushed, every bone shattered, as if something had squeezed them like a fist. When the coroner examined him, he found something lodged in the tuner's throat, a tiny metronome pendant, the same one Emily had drawn in her hospital sketches, the same one stolen from Beethoven's museum. The message was clear. The piano man didn't like loose ends. But the girl? She became a ghost story. Parents in Oregon warned their kids about the forest daughter, a spirit who'd ask you to solve a riddle before leading you to a buried box. Hikers claimed to hear piano notes echoing through the trees at 3:07 a.m. And in 2017, a group of teenagers filming a YouTube video in the Willamette Forest captured something. Their footage shows a blur of white darting between the pines. When they zoom in, the shape resolves into a girl in a hospital gown. Her face is pixelated, distorted, except for her eyes. Bright blue, unnervingly familiar. One of the teens shouts, "Emily?" The girl turns, smiles, and holds up a hand, clutching a strawberry-patterned ribbon. Then the camera dies. When the teens got home, they found a CD left on their doorstep. No label, no fingerprints. They played it. It was 12 seconds of a piano sonata, the same one from the sheet music in New York, the same one the girl had hummed in the hospital. Experts analyzed the recording. Buried in the audio was a voice, too faint to decipher, but spectral, echoing. A voice print later matched it to Emily's mother, a woman who died in 2008. The case is still open, still unsolved, still alive, because in 2023, a construction crew demolishing an old music school in Chicago found a locker sealed behind a brick wall. Inside was a child's backpack, pink, dusty. Inside the backpack, a stack of sheet music titled Movement 4, a cassette tape labeled For the Listener, and a Polaroid photo of a man in a tuxedo, standing in front of a grandfather clock. His face is blurred, his gloves are spotless, and on the clock's frozen face, the hands point to 3:07. On the back of the photo, a handwritten note. The finale is yours to write, but some melodies should never be played. Let me ask you something. What's worse, a monster or a mystery? Because this story has both. 6 years of questions, 6 years of dead ends, and 6 reasons why this case claws its way into your brain and refuses to let go. First, was Emily Walsh ever real? Her parents buried her. They swore it. The coffin had a body. The grave had bones. But then a girl crawls out of a box with Emily's face, Emily's voice, Emily's DNA, and a head full of memories that don't belong to her. A dead girl's memories. So who did they bury? And who did they rescue? The cops never found out. But in 2015, a forensic artist tried to age progress Emily's photo. The result? A face that matched Lily Carter, the girl who died in 1996. Two ghosts in one body. A paradox with a pulse. Second, what was the piano man composing? A symphony? A machine? A new kind of human? The girl said he'd whisper about perfecting the silence between notes. But silence doesn't leave footprints, doesn't steal metronomes, doesn't bleed, and yet every piece of evidence dissolved like smoke. The box disintegrated in an evidence locker fire. The piano wire vanished from the lab. Even the soil from the burial site turned to ash when tested. It's like the piano man wasn't just a person. He was an idea, and ideas don't die. Third, why let her live just to bury her? Was it a test? A ritual? Or was she bait? Because here's what no one admits. After Emily vanished from the hospital, 7 more people disappeared near the Willamette Forest. A pianist, a clockmaker, a geneticist, all experts in their fields, all gone without a trace. The only clue, a witness who saw a man in a tuxedo leaving a metronome on the geneticist's doorstep. A metronome that ticked backward. Fourth, why does time bend around this case? 3:07 a.m., the flicker on the hospital camera, the frozen clocks, the grandfather clock in Emily's sketches, even the coordinates from the sheet music. When plotted on a map, they form a perfect circle around the forest with a radius of 3.07 miles. Coincidence? Or a signature? Fifth, who left the notes? You'll never finish the sonata. The finale is yours to write. The next movement begins soon. They're not taunts. They're invitations. To what? To join him? To solve him? Or to become part of his composition? Because every person who dug too deep into this case met the same fate. Broken hands, shattered minds, and a single piano key left on their doorstep. A key that, when tested, always played the same note, B-flat. The same note that hums in your skull when you stand too close to a power line. The same note Emily hummed in her sleep. And finally, where does the music come from? Every October 12th, hikers in the Willamette Forest report hearing it. A faint, looping melody. No source, no speaker, just the trees trembling like violin strings. In 2018, an audio engineer snuck into the forest with a parabolic mic. He recorded 47 seconds of music. When he played it backward, it wasn't a satanic chant or a hidden message. It was a lullaby, a simple aching tune. And singing along in the background, a child's voice. 2 children, actually. One laughing, one crying. The engineer took the recording to a lab. The voices were analyzed. One matched Emily Walsh's vocal patterns. The other, Lily Carter's. 2 girls, one song. But here's what keeps me up at night. The lullaby isn't original. It's a variation of a 19th century French folk song called Le Berceau Vide, The Empty Cradle. The lyrics? About a mother searching for a child who was never born. A child who exists only in a dream. So I'll ask you one last time. What's worse, a monster or a mystery? Maybe they're the same thing. Maybe the piano man isn't a he at all. Maybe he's the sound a heart makes when it stops. The click of a metronome in an empty room. The hum of a forgotten melody that's been playing since long before you were born, and will keep playing long after you're gone. And maybe, just maybe, that's why this story won't let you go. Because somewhere out there, the song is still playing, and it's waiting for you to sing along. In the end, there are only 2 facts we know for sure. Fact 1. On October 12, 2002, a girl climbed out of a box in the Oregon woods. She had no heartbeat for 6 years. No breath. No age. But she was alive. Fact 2. That box is still out there. Not the same box, maybe, but boxes like it. Hidden in forests. Basements. Places where the light can't reach. Because whatever the piano man was, scientist, demon, ghost, he understood one thing. Humanity loves a mystery. We'll dig up graves, decode ciphers, chase shadows, even when we know the truth might hollow us out. But here's what they don't tell you about empty boxes. They're never really empty. They hold echoes. The echo of Emily's voice when she asked, "Am I the silence or the song?" The echo of a metronome ticking in a detective's basement long after he quit the force. The echo of 7 missing experts, their families still setting plates at the table just in case. And the echo of you right now wondering, What if I'd been the hiker? What if I'd heard the music? What if I opened the box? But some doors, once opened, won't close. In 2022, a backpacker in Colorado stumbled onto a metal crate half buried in a riverbank. Inside, a cassette tape labeled Movement V. Authorities played it. 47 seconds of a child singing Luberso Vide, the same lullaby from the woods. But this time there was a third voice layered underneath, a man's baritone, humming along. The recording ends with 3 clicks. Click, 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 like a hammer striking a piano key, or a coffin nail. They never found the crate again. The river washed it away. But locals swear that on quiet nights, you can still hear the tape playing underwater. A song for the fish, a song for the dead. So let me leave you with this. The next time you walk through a forest, any forest, pay attention to the silence between the birdsong. That's where he hides. In the gaps, the pauses, the moments you think nothing is happening. Because the piano man's masterpiece isn't a song. It's the silence that comes after. And all he needs to finish it is you.